Hey everyone, today we're going to be continuing our hireling series, and we're going to focus on all the hirelings that can be found in the Underworld Hirelings pack. That includes these 3 cards, which are of course all double-sided, with the promoted side on one side and the demoted side on the reverse, and therefore we have 6 new hirelings. If you know the Underworld expansion, it's no surprise that the Underworld hirelings will be based on the moles, which we have the Sunward Expedition and the Mole Artisans. We have the Corvids Spies, as well as the Raven Sentries. And we have a new one that's actually a pink hireling that's not based on any existing faction. It's the Protector. We have the Stoic Protector and the Furious Protector. And just look at this little meeple. This is just fantastic. I really like this one. I think it's going to be a favorite. So, as you can understand, if you have the Underworld expansion, you won't be able to use the same factions with the hirelings that are based on them. So if I have the Underground Duchy in an actual game, I won't be able to use the Sunward Expedition or the Mole Artisans in the game. So logic would follow that it makes sense to maybe think about getting this hireling pack if the Underworld expansion is one of the ones that you're missing. So my advice is just to go and pick out a hireling pack to start off with based on an expansion that you don't have. But without any further ado, let's get into the explanation of how these guys all work. I'm a little bit sick. I have a holiday flu, so bear with me here and there. We're going to start with the Sunward Expedition. Now, as you can see, we have 8 of these little mole warriors. I'm actually missing one of them. I don't know if I lost it, but I'm using a normal duchy warrior to represent the 8th one. And it comes with 3 foothold tokens that are sort of representing the tunnels from the original faction. They work in a similar way, but not quite exactly the same. So we're going to look at the card. And the setup instructions say, place a foothold token and 3 expedition warriors in any clearing. So remember, if you're playing with hirelings, this all happens before you've drafted factions and before any homelands have been chosen. So the last player in turn order is going to get to set up a hireling. So you would take one of these foothold tokens and 3 warriors and just choose any clearing on the map where you want them to start. So that is the setup instruction for the Sunward Expedition. And then once somebody hires it, the action is described as once in daylight. So anytime in your daylight, you can go ahead and take the action with the Sunward Expedition. It says, first, place a foothold token and up to 3 expedition warriors in a clearing with no foothold. If no footholds are in the supply, remove one from the map in order to place it. So this is reminiscent of the dig action. So you would take one of the footholds from the supply alongside as many warriors as you want, up to 3, and place them all in a clearing without a foothold already. So you would not be able to drop the token and 3 more warriors to make a big stack. You can't do that. So you have to choose a different clearing where there isn't already a foothold. So you place it there and then put as many warriors as you want, up to 3. So you could actually do this action and place 0 warriors if you so choose. That's totally up to you, but we're going to put all 3 in that clearing. And this could be a really useful way to just rapidly gain rule over a clearing because your controlled hirelings add to your warriors for rule. Note that even though you're controlling the tokens of this faction, or of this hireling, your faction's abilities, powers, and crafted improvements do not apply to your hirelings. So before you get any bright ideas, soup kitchens will not help with the footholds give you rule, because your crafted improvements only apply to your faction, not to your not to your controlled hirelings. So keep that in mind. So that's the first step of your daylight action. Then immediately after, you have a choice. So the second step of the hireling action is you may move and then you may battle. If you're familiar with how the forest patrol works, it's kind of exactly the same. As long as you have rule and you're following your normal rules, you can take a move with the hireling. So you can do like that. And then battle. And you can battle in the destination clearing or any other clearing where you have the hireling warriors in order to initiate the battle, right? It doesn't have to be move and battle in that spot. So it's two separate actions. You may move with the hirelings and then you may battle with the hirelings. That's your first option for the second step of the daylight phase. And if you choose not to move and battle, you can instead place a warrior at each foothold. So what I could do is drop a foothold with 3 warriors for the first step, and then for the second step, I could say, and I'm going to add 1 warrior to each of these clearings with a foothold. And that's pretty cool because that just allows you to rapidly deploy lots of warriors onto the map that are under your control. If, let's say, you're the Marquise de Cat and you just need a little bit of extra help ruling a clearing or two. So I think that this hireling is one of the more generic ones, one of the more classic. It'll give you an idea of how hirelings are used in general because they can do some moving in battle, as well as just rapidly deploy lots of warriors for the sake of gaining rule advantage. And that's pretty cool. Okay. The reverse side, or the demoted side of the Sunward Expedition, is the Mole Artisans. And this is one of those classic demoted passive abilities. And what it says is the controller gains this ability. Whenever you craft a card with an item, so you're crafting one of the items, you may reveal it instead of discarding it. So if you're familiar with how the Lizards and the Underground Duchy work, they reveal cards by placing them into their play area next to their faction board, not discarding it. So normally when you craft an item, you discard the card. But if you have this improvement, you may decide instead to put the card off to the side and reveal it. At the end of evening, return the cards you revealed in this way to your hand. And in parentheses, you may end your turn with 6+ cards. This is really key because you get to take all those cards that you revealed back into your hand, similar to how the moles work, only that it happens at the end of evening. Every single faction has to discard down to 5, generally as their last or second to last step of evening. But this is the one way that you would be able to end your turn, discard your hand down to 5, and then reclaim all those cards that you used to craft items at the end of your evening, so you would end your turn with theoretically 6 or 7 or more cards. So this can be really powerful for factions that both craft really easily and particularly care about card volume. Like the Woodland Alliance, for example, you can craft a bunch of items, put those cards off to the side, and then regain those card items to either craft the remaining ones on the following turn, or you'll just have spare cards left over that you could mobilize. Very, very powerful stuff. Keep in mind that cards that are revealed in this way, just like for the Underground Duchy and the Lizards, they are no longer in your hand. Therefore, they are not vulnerable to partisans or if you cause outrage by attacking the Woodland Alliance, for example. So if I reveal an item card, I put it off to the side, then I trigger outrage by battling the Woodland Alliance. The cards that are revealed are safe. I don't have to give them over because they are not in my hand. So very cool demoted ability. That's the Mole Artisans. The next hireling is the one based on the Corvid conspiracy, which is Corvids Spies. Very interesting. I find that the little guy down in the corner kind of reminds me of Lakitu, if you're familiar with Mario Kart. So the setup instructions say place 2 spy warriors, 1 each in 2 clearings of matching suit, meaning that I would just pick a suit like rabbit or fox or whatever, and let's choose fox as an example. I would have to split them up and place both of them in a different fox clearing. So I could place 1 here and 1 here, or 1 here and 1 here. They have to just be the same suit. Importantly, if you have the Lost City in play, you still don't get to double them up because the language is specific. It says, one each in 2 clearings of matching suit. So yeah, make sure that you are splitting them up. So you can just put 2 of them in rabbit. There's an example. Then, when you are in your daylight phase, if you are controlling the hireling, the first step is place 2 spy warriors among any clearings with enemy pieces. Ah, very cool. So most hirelings have this requirement that you can place them only in clearings where you have presence. But because they're spies, it's very thematic, you get to place them behind enemy lines. So if your enemy is over in this corner, you get to place 2 warriors. Now, the daylight portion, unlike the setup instructions, does not say that you have to split them up. Now it just says place 2 warriors among any clearings with enemy pieces. So you could put them together in the same clearing, or you can split them up if you so desire. There's no requirement for them to match in suit at this point, just as long as where you're putting them has enemy pieces, okay? So that's 1. The second step of the daylight action is a choice. Battle in each clearing with spy warriors. That's really cool. Now remember that this is an action that the hireling takes, not you, the controller. So you would be able to say, okay, I place 2 warriors for my first step, and then I'm going to battle enemies in each of these clearings. So we're going to battle an enemy in this clearing, then battle an enemy in this clearing, then in here, and then in here. So you can do a whole lot of just blast damage in all bunch of different places. Keep in mind, you don't have to always choose the same enemy to battle every time. You can choose to attack the Lord of the Hundreds here, then the Eerie Dynasties here. So maybe it might make sense to recruit them both into the same clearing so that you can do a much bigger attack roll. Or maybe you're the Lord of the Hundreds themselves, and you just need to remove some enemy pieces in order to aid with oppressing a clearing, and there's only 1 warrior that you want to remove, so you can just battle this guy here, then here, and here. Very, very powerful to be able to just unleash a whole bunch of battles after you've done a little recruitment action. So the second option for your second step of daylight, there's a whole bunch of different steps, is if you choose not to battle, instead you may, in 1 clearing with any spy warriors, the controller takes a random card from each enemy with faction pieces there. Super powerful. So this is almost like an extortion plot being flipped, where if you're the Corvid Conspiracy, if you're familiar with that faction, you flip an extortion and you get to take a card from all the enemies that had pieces in the clearing where you flipped it. But that's something that you had to set up. You actually had to get an extortion in there. This is even better because, let me remind you, it happens after that first step. So if we have a clearing over here where all 3 of my enemies happen to be congregated, I can say, okay, I'm going to put both of the warriors in there, and I'm going to now do my second step, which is steal from all 3 of you. Fork them over, fork them over. Really, really powerful hireling. This feels almost like one of the strongest ones in the game. I think it's really cool. So be careful who you give it to, because if they need cards, they will get them using this hireling. Very, very nice. The reverse side is almost just as strong. This is Raven Sentries. The power that the controller of this demoted hireling gains is, in battle, you deal an extra hit if the battle clearing has buildings or tokens of your faction. So it's kind of similar to Embedded Agents, only Embedded Agents is always on defense. Well, this works on offense. So if I'm the Marquise de Cat and I've got a building or a wood token in a clearing, I can either battle you or wait for you to battle me and deal extra hits as long as there is a, building or token in that clearing that belongs to my faction. And just note that there is no requirement for you to have any warriors. So if you're the Woodland Alliance and you just have an undefended sympathy token, somebody could come and battle your sympathy token, and hey, that's technically a clearing where you have one of your faction tokens, and therefore that sympathy now deals a damage against the enemy. So this is both, similar to partisan cards, this is both offensive and defensive. The only requirement is that you have one of your faction's buildings or token. Unbelievably strong if you ask me. Very, very cool. And the last hireling in this set is arguably the spiciest. This is the Protector. The promoted side is the Furious Protector. Look at how furious he is. Whoa! The setup instructions for this one are very simple. Place the Protector pawn in any clearing. Done. So, the passive ability of this Protector is that the Protector cannot be battled or removed. Enemies cannot place pieces in its clearing. Oh my god, the implications of that are insane. Because this essentially means that this pawn, remember it's a pawn, not a warrior, so it doesn't help you with rule, but it's like a roving keep of the Marquise de Cat. So as long as you are in control of this pawn, of this hireling, you prevent enemies from placing pieces in there. But wait a second, how does that affect setup? Well, remember, the hirelings don't actually have homelands, but this does function as a keep of sorts because at the start of the game, all of the hirelings are uncontrolled and therefore they are enemies to everybody. That means that at the setup of the game, somebody would choose where to place this pawn, and then for the purposes of setup, nobody gets to place pieces in here. So even if the Marquise de Cat is chosen, they would not get to place one of their warriors in this clearing because this hireling is an enemy to the Marquise de Cat until they would control them. So for the purposes of setup, this can actually warp things around a little bit, which is very interesting. Okay. And of course, you would never be able to remove it. So if a bomb goes off or a revolt goes off, the Protector is immune from those effects and you can't select it as a battle target. Now, here it's a little bit different. The action that you see, the symbol, is start of bird song as opposed to daylight, which is most hirelings. So at the start of bird song, the first step is you must move the Protector, ignoring rule. So similar to the Vagabond, you don't worry about rule with pawns moving, it just moves. But it's not a choice. You have to move, the controller gets to move it to any clearing that would be valid. So you can just move it here. Or you could move it here. Always one step at a time. And interestingly, this goes for all hirelings. If you move one of your hirelings, do you get to draw a card if you move it with the fairy? Yes, you do. This is a weird quirk of the rules. It's literally in the law under weird stuff. But if you move your hirelings using the fairy, you still get to draw a card, even though technically you're not supposed to share hands with your hirelings. It's just in the rules. Don't worry about it. However, you would not be able to move with the fairy again with your own faction warriors on that turn. So you still get the benefit of the fairy, just you can't use it twice. Keep that in mind. So you have to move the Protector once every start of birdsong. And then the second step is you must remove one faction warrior of each player, even you, in the Protector's clearing. Do not remove hirelings. So yes, it only affects faction warriors, but this is crazy. What kind of Protector is this? So you have to move it, so move to a new clearing, and in the destination clearing, remove one faction warrior from everyone, including the controller. So this is crazy. This means you want to be very careful of where the Protector is, because it's not like the Protector can just zip to the other side of the map and start smacking around over here. They have to go one step at a time, turn after turn. So if you're anywhere in the zone of the Protector, you may either want to leave or gain control of it in order to maybe send it away preemptively, so it's going to take time for it to get back to your back line. So this is a very cool hireling. And the demoted side is arguably even spicier. So even though the demoted side still uses the pawn, it doesn't have setup instructions. Instead, it's a when hired symbol. That means as soon as someone takes it from the supply, you activate the when hired ability. And this says, if the Protector pawn is not on the map, which it won't be the first time that it's taken from the supply, place it in a clearing with your faction pieces. Okay? So that means that you do like I was saying before, like most hirelings, you do have to place it somewhere where you already have your own faction pieces. So you get to place it there. And one of the passive rules is the protector cannot be battled or removed. So because the protector can't be removed, you're never again going to have to do the when hired action. That's literally only going to happen the first time someone gains control of it. The second is an ability for the controller. Enemies cannot battle or remove your faction pieces at the protector. This is crazy. This is, I think, the only effect in the game that prevents battles from happening. So imagine this. The badgers really want to delve in this clearing, but right now, the only pieces in this clearing are yours and the protector. So the badgers might come in here, and there are enemy pieces, right? The hireling and your own warriors are enemies to the badger's player, but they cannot battle you here because of the protector's rule, and they can't battle the protector either because that's one of its passive rules. That means that the badgers cannot delve at all from this clearing because they're just not able to execute the battle part of their retinue, and therefore they don't get to delve either. So this can be a very interesting anti-badger play to try and keep the protector in the realm of where the badgers want to go. And the same goes for the Eerie Dynasties, right? If they have a fox card in battle, you can just vacate 3 of the fox clearings, make sure that you don't have any presence there, there's nothing for them to battle, and just put the protector in this one, and as a result, an enemy Eerie would not be able to battle in that clearing. Of course, the attacker can still do battles in this clearing. It's just that enemies cannot battle the controller in this clearing. Importantly, it's not just that they can't battle you here. They also cannot remove faction pieces at the protector. So if a Corvid flips a bomb, or there's a Woodland Alliance revolt, or a favor card, the protector will literally protect your pieces from being removed in any way. But only enemies cannot remove them. If you're the Woodland Alliance, for example, and you have a warrior here, and you organize one of your warriors, you still have to remove the warrior to place the sympathy token, because that's you removing your faction piece, not an enemy. So the protector protects you from enemies removing pieces or battling you. And then the start of Birdsong action is very simple. You must move the protector ignoring rule. So just like the promoted side, you're moving it 1 turn at a time. Every time the controller's Birdsong comes around. And that's it. Those are the 3 hirelings, or the 6, I guess, technically, that I wanted to cover for today. We've got the Sunward Expedition, Mole Artisans, Corvids Spies, and Raven Sentries, Stoic Protector, and Furious Protector. I really like this pack. I think that the Protector and the Corvid have some very interesting game warping effects, whereas the Sunward Expedition is more of a bread and butter kind of hireling that's just doing not too complicated things. So this might be a good one to introduce with beginners in mind, because really it's just another type of faction that's going to be popping up and doing battles and moves and recruits. It doesn't do anything too crazy, which is fine. It's nice to have a few of the hirelings like that are a little bit more rudimentary in their effect. So thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.